Owen, this is your territory now because I'm the weirdo that does Wing Chun and Xing-I.
That's not weird.
Yeah. So we're getting into the Tai Chi stuff. I'm like that's my guy over there.
And so, did you end up spending any time with Zhang Xue Xin?
Zhang Xue Xin, yes, I trained with him for probably 3 or 4 years. Until I moved to China. Yeah.
And how did you get your introduction to Feng?
I actually got that through his daughter, Feng Xiuqian, who is and was a teacher who taught in Tiantan Park in Beijing. This friend of mine, in fact, he used to train in Wing Chun. Tony Wong in San Francisco, who does Chen Tai Chi and is a very established teacher of Chen Tai Chi in San Francisco. He was visiting Beijing and stopped to see me, and he and a couple of friends were on their way to the Chin Village to a competition, Chin style competition. And he had met Feng's daughter and was going to see her, invited me to come along. And so I went to the park and met her, and we practiced together a bit. Her father then was out of town, but anyway, she offered to introduce me to him when he came back. So
wow. So that was lucky. Talk about luck.
It was, you know,
I was like, good fortune.
Very good fortune, because a teacher of his stature would not accept, especially a foreigner, just walking in cold, you know. But through his daughter and his daughter and I became very good friends. But so she was instrumental in that, and then she also arranged for me to train then with Chen Xiang, who was the most accomplished fighter of Master Feng's numerous disciples.
Is Feng's daughter still with us, John or Michael?
Yes. Yeah.
Is she good? Good.
She's very good. I mean, her understanding of, you know, she learned Tai Chi at her father's knee, and
sure.
She's very good. And she's still teaching. Her daughter too now is teaching like online and has this
cool
podcast. I think it's got like 500,000. You know, in China you get these incredible numbers. But,
sure.
You know, huge number of people following her. You know.
Do you know if she speaks English? We'd love to have her on.
The daughter does. Shouqian does not, but the daughter speaks English. Yeah.
Well, we'll have to see if we can get her on the show sometime.
I can. Let me look up some contact, and afterward you can give me. I've got your address. I can send you her contact.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
Yeah.
So tell us, you met Feng and you worked with Feng. What was that like? What was that like?
That was really extraordinary, because by then, you know, I had trained many years in martial arts and had some very good teachers, very grateful for them. But Feng was really extraordinary. You know, I you know, it's like in any art, you've got different levels. So you know, but he was the highest level that I had encountered, you know, by far. In Hunyuan Tai Chi, which is the Tai Chi that he developed, that again, it has essentially Chen style forms, but has some Xing-I and some Qigong elements. And he also has a lot of exercise that are specifically for Qigong, like gathering energy, Fan Gong, which is relaxing, which is a precondition to the ability to gather energy, and Chan Gong, which is silk reeling, which comes from the Chen style Tai Chi, which has to do with moving energy through the body, and so he had a lot of specific exercises for that. But in Hunyuan theory, the kind of threshold level of true mastery in his mind was this notion of Ili Hunyuan Chi, which is translated as like one pellet or one pearl of energy. And it's this notion that, and it's not really, it's kind of expressed in a particular way by Hunyuan. It's not alien from other theory, because like Tai Chi theory also has a foundation in Jinglo theory, which is the channels and meridians of energy in your body that are identified in traditional Chinese medicine. So, but the notion of Ili Hunyuan Chi is the process of training in any internal martial art. Part of it is opening these channels, many of which have been closed, especially as you get older. So that the optimal health, like the model for optimal health, like in Tai Chi, is often a toddler, who's kind of all the energy channels are open, and they got this terrific grip and all this. So, and as you get older, these channels and meridians, they start to close off. And in fact, in traditional Chinese medicine, the definition of health is the ample, unimpeded flow of energy throughout the body. And when either because of injury or illness that gets blocked off, then, you have a problem, because the idea is the energy guides the blood nourishes the cells, cleanses the cells, all of that. So a lot of this is like a kind of dredging process. A lot of the Gong, the internal Gong exercises, a lot of it is, and again, these can only open in a relaxed condition. That's why one of the reasons relaxation is so important is because, like, where there's tension in your body, it blocks the flow of energy. So in a martial application, that means if I'm cultivating energy in my dantian, and then it's essentially like an explosion that goes out to the extremities of the body, and it's directed by your mind intent and your posture. So any part of your body that is tense is going to block that movement of energy. So that's an issue in a martial, context. From a health perspective, it's the same thing, which is to say, where you have blocked energy, you've got, potentially illness or disease. So the I've wandered off track here.
No. You know what's great? That's great. You know what was great about that model that you just gave there, Michael? I've never really heard anybody on our show present it that way. Is you tied in the martial and the health together, and I haven't heard that done before on the show yet, through the concept of relaxation. So and it sounds to me from what you just said there, and maybe this might lead it into a different direction, is it sounds like Feng, because he was the next level of teacher, was the next level of high level instruction. It sounds like he just didn't throw a bunch of stuff at the wall and see what stuck. It sounds like he thought about it, and it sounds like Feng's approach was very systematic. Do you think that Feng had somewhat of a systematic approach to his methods?
Oh, definitely. Because like I say, Feng had this rare dual lineage. And so if you go back and look at when he was young, there were two dominant martial artists in Beijing, in the sense that and a lot of people will make claims for other people, but there was Chen Fa-ke, who had moved to Beijing, and Hu Yaozhen, who was a famous Xing-I master, and also he founded the first Qigong hospital in Beijing. And they were widely recognized as the dominant martial arts figures. Now, and again, people came and went, and I don't want to diss anybody else, but there were certainly acknowledged to be among the top. So Master Feng was a top student of Chen Fa-ke, so he learned that whole tradition of Chen Tai Chi. He also learned the Xinyi from Hu Yaozhen, and Hu Yaozhen, like the Qigong, all of the teachings of Hu Yaozhen were traditionally transmitted in secret. A lot of them had in a Taoist context. So in the sense, he wasn't throwing things up against the wall. What he was doing was merging various long-standing traditions and kind of synthesizing them into a very coherent system, that had a complete theory, and then the theory was a foundation for training methods that had verifiable results. And so it was not in any way random. It was like the pinnacle of long-standing, traditions in China. So, it was not random at all. But it was very comprehensive. And that was one of the things that really appealed to me because, in training in a lot of traditional martial arts, like styles, they have kind of big gaps. So in the past, they might have had the, giants who had a kind of complete understanding, but things get lost along the way. Or, some people don't learn it all, and so then they can't teach it all. So it was the kind of completeness that, that appealed to me, but it wouldn't have appealed to me had it not been verified in my mind by the skill and ability of Feng. It was like he was this extraordinarily impressive presence who had this extraordinary martial ability. And then once you began to explore like his training methods, then you come to appreciate just how comprehensive and complete they were. But like I say, when you push hands with him, the first time I met him, it was, it was just an extraordinary experience because like I had sparred with a lot of people, been hit by a lot of people.
Sure.
So I kind of, I knew a bit about that kind of mixing it up. And, but like when you cross arms, like, to beginning position of like push hands and like back of the arm. And I touched him and it was absolutely solid. And then wherever I like shifted to move, it was just like I was pushing against the earth because he was like just subtly adjusting his body in a very relaxed way to align, again, primarily his skeletal structure so that whatever force I was applying was just, like I said, it was like pushing against the ground, And then, so he does that a little and then he just totally relaxes his arm. But when I would try to push him, I could find, no surface against which to push, which is another, kind of cardinal principle of Tai Chi that is very hard to master, this idea of no resistance, that the initial reaction is always to yield and to kind of redirect the force by turning. And so with him, you could push anywhere and he could, yield so that there was no surface to push against. And then when you were at the very edges of your balance, at the, extreme of your posture, boom, then
he gets you.
He often would, like I say, it was a process of adding on power, So if I would try to push against him, then he would just relax and follow me to the very end of my movement. And then when my balance was at the point of risk, so I stop and I start to pull back, well, that's the point where a slight force can pull you off balance, Mm-hmm. Likewise, if I'm drawing back, okay, I can draw back so far, and then if I go too far, I'm going to fall. So I will stop. But if somebody is following you, that's the moment when then they would push or pull. But it was the refinement of his movement was such that he could sense at any moment kind of where my balance was, where my energy was, and disrupt it. It was it was an extraordinary experience. Yeah. Mm. And I saw him do that over and over again with lots and lots of people. So it wasn't uniquely me, but he was, he was truly exceptional.
So was there anything unusual or different that you noticed over the years about when he would issue that force back at you? Did it, I don't know, did it have a quality to it, or were there different qualities, or?
It was, the first quality I would say, and I was grateful for that, is it was controlled.
Sure.
Because he had the kind of power that would have ruptured your organs, Sure. But also it was, this idea of energy, which, is often misunderstood in Tai Chi because some people think of it as something separate from the body, Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And there's, sometimes it can be, it's but it's in actual martial arts. It's for example, you can see videos of Tai Chi master and the student's 10 feet away, and the Tai Chi master is making movements and the student is reacting, right?
Sure.
So I don't think that is necessarily fake, because if someone trains for someone a long time, they can become very sensitized to their movement and intention and react to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But don't trust that in a real martial arts situation. See, that's the thing. That's the difference. Because in a real fight, there's got to be physical contact. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't preclude the importance of the energy. So again, mind moves the energy, energy moves the body, body does the technique. Well, anyway, pushing hands with Master Feng, sometimes I could feel like he might do a movement, like this. And my body would just roll up, and it's like I could just feel his energy and kind of go right to the point where had he continued, or had he had the intention, I know he could have just snapped my spine. It was like that powerful. It was like being in a wave in the ocean, But again, it wasn't, he was touching me, so it was kind of, it was expressed through the body. But the mind and the energy were just generating this kind of tremendous force, tremendous potential. But again, it was very controlled, because he did have that capability where he could, he could do you in
anytime he wanted.
Yeah.
Where did you start with your training with Feng? What was the origin point? Where does he have his? I mean, I know you were an experienced martial artist coming to him. So did he start you in a different place than he would have started somebody else? Maybe.
Oh yeah, it was. His daughter introduced him. He then was 73, and so he didn't teach regular classes, but he had a couple places in Beijing, senior students had classes, and he would drop by. One of the places was Ditan Park in Beijing. And so that's where I first met him. And he would come most mornings and spend some time with a senior student of his who was teaching a class, and he would, teach part of the class or whatever, and then go off. And anyway, he agreed to teach me, and so I would meet him there in the morning, and he for about an hour of private instruction in a different part of the park. So where just he and I practiced, and he would, he had me go through all the forms I knew, corrected them, taught me other forms, taught me applications, fighting applications for the movements and gong exercises. And so it was private instruction, and it was kind of at my level. And this is another thing too. He was an extraordinary teacher in the sense of he kind of knew how much I could absorb at any particular moment. Give me that much, but not more. Because that it's not helpful to kind of overfill the cup, And,
absolutely.
So, but he had this, and part of it was the ability. I mean, that comes at a very high level, and again, related more to the internal qualities of the art, which is it's a sensitivity that feels very penetrating. It's like when you push hands with him, it's like it was as if he was anticipating my movements. And now, what was actually going on? Well, I'm not sure. I mean, because part of like push hands, which you're familiar with, right? Which is, it can be practiced cooperatively. It can be practiced as, competitively. It's better to practice cooperatively. So it's about, it's the main purpose is called tinger or listening power. And it's like idea of like, using all of your senses and your feeling and your experience to gauge like the magnitude and direction of the incoming energy so that then you can divert it and not have it impact you. That's half of it. And the other side is projecting your energy and searching for the kind of center line of your opponent so you can apply your energy. So at a very high level, that sensitivity can, part of it could be that, which is like become so sensitized that any kind of preparatory movement or gesture is a signal, and it can be disrupted. So that's one possibility. Another possibility is that just the mind or the the quality of mind, which relates to quieting the mind and creating this penetrating awareness. Because sometimes when and actually Chen Xiang, who I mentioned as his student, but I don't want to diminish his level because those two are the two most extraordinary martial artists that I've encountered. And both of them had that ability where you're pushing hands where it almost sometimes felt like they were jamming your mind, or they'd be showing me something and I would know what's coming. And yet I couldn't react in time, but it wasn't that blazingly fast. And so I don't know how much of it was just exploiting little gaps in my attention, through extreme sensitivity and just, deep refinement of tinger, listening power, it's called. Or if it's something else, of like in the mind where they could actually, like radar, kind of jam the mind. But it had that quality where it's just, And in fact, there's an expression, I can't remember the Chinese phrasing of it, but they talk about like when pushing hands, it's like throwing a net over somebody and swallowing them. I mean, that's kind of but that's what it was like, kind of, that when you push hands with them, which is nothing I could do was not anticipated, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
And it was just overwhelming, you know? So it's not like, oh, you know, okay, I'm going to get one in here, you know, or something.
Sure.
No, it was like just not possible. But
you know what I love about the net image, Michael, is it encapsulates the whole person.
absolutely.
A net encapsulates a whole person. So it didn't matter if you were trying to load up your pinky toe, you know, or your left shoulder. He could feel that whole being all at once. So he had you in his net, in his radar.
Yeah.
That's great. That's
exactly what it's like.
That's amazing. That's amazing. What have you, I mean, you still practice his style of Tai Chi.
I do.
How has it deepened? What have you noticed out of his practices after all these years of doing that style? Are there pieces of it that you're understanding more and more now, as opposed to when you first started?
Very much so. But there's a big caveat, which is 7 years ago, I was diagnosed with this cancer, the mysterious cancer. I've had multiple surgeries. I've had numerous chemo regimens. I've had immunotherapy, hormone therapy. So I have undergone this kind of horrific array of treatments that are like much more brutal than any martial arts training I've had. So that and age have definitely diminished me in many ways. So in the terms of like a martial capability, it has decreased, you know, because I'm physically much weaker than I used to be. But it's interesting because I continue to practice, even though, like, I had this nasty surgery. They took all the lymph nodes out of the right side of my neck. Oh. They cut me from my ear down to my jaw and across my neck. Then I had like 33 radiation treatments, and together they damaged nerves in my shoulder area that affect the trapezius muscle. So that atrophied. So that created a condition called winged scapula, because the trapezius muscle anchors the whole shoulder assembly. So it disabled my right arm. I can still move it close to my body, but if I extend it or lift it, it has no strength or structural integrity. So I've had to modify a lot of the movements, but I continue to train and emphasizing the Gong exercises, but also doing Xing-I and Baji forms. But interestingly to me is my understanding has continued to deepen, you know, and the quality of my movement in many ways has improved. But again, my ultimate performance would be below what it was before because I'm physically weaker in that. But the kind of refinement of the understanding and of kind of unifying the movement in the body of even like the principles of expressing force, like Fa Jing. Okay, so Fa Jing is literally translates like releasing energy. So in the Tai Chi theory, one way to think of that is, again, cultivating energy in the middle dantian at the abdomen, exploding that. It's going to the extremities and is directed by the intention and the posture. But one of the key elements of that is the downward pressure of the anchored foot is very much responsible or determinant for the kind of force that is projected by, let's say you're hitting with fist. And so that kind of timing and synchronization can be done on a dramatic level. Like you can, just let that rip and use full force, or it can be very muted. I mean, you can scale that. And so that's one of the great things about about learning how to practice properly is you can practice those things without expending a lot of energy, because that's the problem with expressing force, of Fa Jing, even though that's common in Chen style Tai Chi. Master Feng always encouraged doing it in a limited way, because even if you're young and healthy, you can think of it as like money. You're spending your money.
Yeah.
You're throwing your energy out there. Where if you know how to practice, you can practice that same kind of motion and explosion or whatever, but in a very muted way, so that you're not spending the energy. Because this is something that Master Feng was very emphatic about, and this had to do both with martial application and health benefits, which is the point is to gather and nurture your energy. And so if you are doing a lot of, especially hard style and a lot of explosive movements, you're expending energy. So what you want over time is to cultivate and nurture energy. So you want to gather more than you spend. Now, you still need to spend energy, to refine the technique, to understand how to do it. But beyond that, you're wasting energy. So Master Feng told this great story about Hu Yaozhen. So Master Feng was a young martial artist, I think was, smashed stones, had been in lots of fights and prevailed. And this friend offered to introduce him to Hu Yaozhen, who was quite famous Xing-I master. And Master Feng was eager for the opportunity and went to meet him. And he said when he first saw him, he was disappointed because Hu looked kind of almost delicate. He didn't look like a fighter. And so Hu Yaozhen told him, okay, well, show me something. And so Feng kind of blasted through this form. I'm not sure what style, because he had practiced several styles,
Yeah.
a powerful form. And he finished, and Hu said, "You're destroying your body." And then Hu instructed Feng, okay, hit me. And Feng said he was reluctant to, because he thought he would, just crush him. But Hu insisted. So he hit him. And he said when he hit him, he was just instantly knocked backward and fell on the ground. And, was amazed at that, because Hu had kind of completely just redirected his energy from his own solar plexus, right? And so Feng dusted himself and got up, and then Hu walked up and said, "Now it's my turn," and poked him with one finger. Because Hu's nickname was Hu One Finger Conquers the World. But anyway, Feng said it was like getting hit by an electrical charge, and it just knocked him back against a building. He was on the ground. He immediately caught at, want to be your student. But so anyway, that was part of, that it was in that tradition, this idea of like cultivating, nurturing your energy, not just spending it. So what he had been doing before, which was, and this is true in a lot of realms, right? People are familiar with this. Like if you're a construction worker. Well, those same practices that make you kind of really fit and strong in your 20s start tearing you down in your 40s, right?
That's right.
Lugging and lifting and pulling, tugging and pulling. Well, it's the same thing, I think, in martial arts, where, if you want to continue to progress and to kind of, especially, preserve your health and all this, then you need to modify certain trainings. You can't just live your whole life pretending you're 14 years old,
True. I have like 2 questions left. Go ahead, Randall.
Well, I was going to ask, tell us a little bit about Feng's student who does the baji.
Oh, Chen Xiang. Chen Xiang. Wow. I mean, what can I say? Grew up in Beijing, trained hard as a youth, was accepted to this special school for athletes when he was 14, but then the Cultural Revolution came, shut down.
Yep.
So they ended up joining the army, going to Inner Mongolia. He had done this style of wrestling called Shuijiao, which is similar to Mongolian wrestling, when he was very young. So he practiced that there. And then he came back from Inner Mongolia, learned Baji, and was kind of so powerful. I mean, one of the things a friend told me once is that he would, he had such powerful torque on his feet, like he could tear the soles right off his shoes. That a friend said he once took a friend of his to meet with Chen Xiang and asked Chen Xiang to show his friend some baji, and Chen Xiang, I've got new tennis shoes. I really would rather not. And he insisted. So Chen Xiang did a couple of movements and tore the soles right off his shoes.
Oh, geez.
And he came after I moved back from China. I had him over a number of times to do workshops and that. And Stanford University did this, launched this research project on actual Tai Chi and energy and all this. And so he and I both became subjects of that and did a number of tests. They did brain tests, fMRIs and things. But they also did this test with him where they covered him with sensors. This is at the Gait and Motion Lab at Berkeley. Okay, you can stop this, right, if you want?
Oh, sure.
Or could I stop it for 2 minutes and go?
Yeah, of course.
Take a leak?
Of course. Yeah, you betcha.
Thanks.
No,
I'll be right
problem.
back.
We'll just have to splice that in there.
Oh yeah, it's no sweat. That's easy. That's easy.
By the way, this is going fucking awesome.
Yeah, it's good times.
This is so much fun. Yeah, and God bless him for it. Yeah. We're trying not to be the what's his name? Oh God, I can't even think of it.
Not too trying not to be too greedy, but I'm having a good time.
I am too. I mean, I knew it was going to be a good one, but I didn't realize. I'm just like, dang it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what a blast. Why am I not?
Yeah, I don't know.
Where's my face?
What'd you do?
I don't know.
You did something. There you go.
God bless him. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna steer you wrong.
Man, what's funny? He was on Ken's podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he was great on Ken's podcast, but I mean, my goodness, what he's given us here. What a blessing.
So much. Yeah. Super cool.
Yeah,
it's so interesting.
Yeah. It's wild. Cause I mean, he's had such great teachers and he's learned so much stuff from all of them, but just He's like, I had this guy. I'm like, well, Wong Jack Man was great. Then I had George Shu. I'm like, well, George Shu is like that from Wong Jack Man. He's like, and then I worked with Feng, and it's like, whoa, just and I don't know. I'm so fascinated, because he's had such that rich pedigree, and even with all that previous training beforehand, he met Feng, and he's like, okay, that's the top of the mountain.
Right. Yeah.
That's the top of this. Here we are. I finally got here. You're up at you're up at the top of Pikes Peak, brother. And you walked it. You didn't take a car. So, yeah.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good.
We were just stopping.
We were just blowing some smoke up your skirt a little bit there. So no, it's good.
We had a great time.
Oh, great. So Stanford did these studies, and I picked up my book here because I didn't.
Oh, great.
Didn't know if I could remember the numbers. I want to make sure I have this right in terms of. So, here's some diagrams. In fact, there's a video that Stanford made that you might want to check out. Okay, so let's see here. All right, so they had him. I don't know if you can see these pictures.
Oh yeah.
So they have sensors on him. This is a digital kind of breakout where he was stepping onto a pressure plate and then doing a palm strike or an elbow strike. And as I mentioned before, the relationship of the planted foot and the attacking, fist is so crucial. But I'll just read you but this is what was interesting to me. It was a partial, but it was a measurement of that, right? Which is that completely, the findings were completely consistent with the theory that evolved way before any of these measurements were possible. But here's, I'll read this to you because I didn't want to get the numbers wrong. Let's see here. Okay. Let me find.
What's the name of this book, Michael? Maybe
this is my memoir.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's right.
You can plug this. That'd be great.
Absolutely.
100%.
No blame.
Yep.
Yeah. So here, conducted in 2008, the tests entailed attaching sensitive electronic sensors to his arms, legs, and torsos. The first test had him deliver a palm strike with his right hand while stepping with his right foot onto a pressure plate in the floor. On his initial attempt, Chen generated such force that many of the sensors shook loose and scattered like marbles on the floor.
That's amazing.
Wow, I haven't seen that before, said Rose. She was the director of the lab, whose lab provided diagnostic services for disabled children, but also conducted research on golf biomechanics. Once the sensors were reattached with additional adhesives, Chen repeated the strike as Rose and I watched from a monitor that digitally registered, among other things, the downward force on the pressure plate. When most subjects stepped onto the plate, Rose explained, an arrow on the screen rose to the level of their knee or thigh. But when Chen's foot pressed down on the plate, the arrow shot higher than his head because his downward force was 3 times his body weight and generated torque 16 times his body weight. The test found that Chen, then 55, accelerated his arm from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 0.28 seconds, reaching maximum velocity and acceleration at the same instant as the downward force on the pressure plate maxed out at 540 pounds. The researchers described his movement as, quotes, an impressive feat, a release of powerful force, yet carefully honed and precise, demonstrating the upper limits of what is possible by the human body, close quotes. In martial arts theory, the striking force of the hand is linked to the downward force of the rooted foot. And Newtonian physics tells us that the, quotes, applied force, close quotes, of a blow increases when the duration of contact with the target decreases. The sensors attached to Chen's body could not precisely measure the force delivered by his hand, but they showed that his arm was extended to the point of contact for merely 25 one-thousandths of a second, a time span so short the scientists described it as approaching an, quotes, impulse, close quotes. An impulse in this context is a force that imparts an instantaneous change of momentum to an object. It's an idealized measure not obtainable in the real world. Yet the researchers found that Chen's strike came close. They hypothesized that his strike had that effect because he relaxed his arm immediately after impact. And then this is a quote from them. This behavior shortens the time contact between the master and the object he is striking, increasing impulse force and dissipating the reaction force experienced by the Tai Chi master as a result of hitting the object. In essence, he throws a deadly strike in a very short amount of time and then relaxes his frame before experiencing the counter force from his opponent. In this manner, the master protects himself from the reaction force or damage that one gets when hitting a fast-moving or very rigid object. So anyway,
Wow. Yeah,
there's there's a video that, like I say, that they put out that showed this, but it does document just, and this goes to this idea of relaxation too, because, like I said, the image they often use is the dantian exploding, just so that wherever there's tension, it slows down the time that it would take to get like from there to my fist, and also diminishes the impact of it. But another aspect is what they mentioned is like, it's like a pulse, it's like, and so it goes, because what you see it with a lot of martial arts, like punch and then they lock up, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's that frozen moment, and in reality too, you're not only vulnerable to a counterattack then, but you're absorbing the reaction force of your own punch. Yep. The speed of his punch and the quality of the explosion and the degree of relaxation, like before and after. What I mean is, like, you can think of it as like an explosion, so that at the very, at one instant, there is like solidity, right? Where it's like everything is just like, bam, all connected and blasted. But then instantly it relaxes. So the quality of his movement, was extraordinary. And
is he still with us, Michael?
Yes. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Then I only have one more question. Then
okay,
you can finish the show. It's back to relaxation.
Oh, yeah.
You talked about it earlier with the martial benefit and the health benefit, and then you just gave that beautiful example of this high level Tai Chi practitioner, and showing the force, the magnitude that they can get. Yeah. One of my big beefs that I think is a problem out in the world, especially in the Chinese martial arts. And I didn't really understand it until I met Owen 13 years ago and started doing the Xing-I with him, is there is a cardinal difference between limp and relaxed.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Would you talk about that in your own words a little bit? What do you think, how people get that wrong?
Yeah, no, and you see that sometimes in Tai Chi, because they'll talk about, because Tai Chi emphasizes relaxation. Well, a lot of people will just get like noodly.
Yeah.
Which is not, because what the concept is, see, it often translates as relaxation, but in Chinese it's called song. Song. So what song implies is relaxed body, but again, the body can only relax if the posture is good, is correct. So that's why like Tai Chi emphasizes alignment, of the torso. So basically you're shifting the burden that many of the muscles have to the skeletal structure.
Yeah.
So you're using gravity, so you're aligning with gravity, so you're not having to use tension to stand up. So if I stand up and bend over, well, I'm having to engage abdominal and back muscles to keep from falling. Whereas if I'm nicely erect, then I can relax those muscles. So the shenfa, or body structure, is crucial. So it's not sloppy and, slovenly or whatever. So that relaxes. But another part of sung, and a crucial component, is the mind is alert. So it's not like you're just tuning out or ripping open a beer, flopping down on the couch. You are aligned with gravity, which facilitates relaxation and also lowers your center of gravity and, sinks the body more. And your mind is intensely alert and aware. And that's another aspect of relaxation. I mean, we've talked about it in terms of the tissues, right? And the muscles, and not interfering with this explosive force. But an even more important part of relaxation is the mind, of quieting the mind. Because if the mind is in the kind of thinking process, then you're not really in the present moment. Your mind is like kind of retrieving information and processing it. So to be optimal, for optimal power and efficiency, your mind needs to be present in the moment, especially to respond like effectively in a martial situation. So that process of quieting is relaxing the mind. So it's not just relaxing the body, it's relaxing the mind, and the mind is actually more difficult than the body. The body can have a lot of old, gnarly, tightened components, but the mind is like, it's been described as a wild horse, right? And it needs to be quieted so that you can shift from this process of thought to one of awareness. Aware, so without an agenda, and that is that's kind of the big kahuna. Like when you train in one of these internal traditions or an external tradition, because if you're going to get to a high level at some point, you have to deal with it, and whatever your style, that ends up being the ultimate challenge, right? Is kind of quieting the mind. But
awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
My pleasure. Yeah, this is a lot of fun. And
likewise.
Yeah. So don't hesitate to tell people to read this book.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll put the link. We'll put the link in the show notes.
That'd be great.
And I've read it. Actually, I've read it twice.
Oh, wow.
So I definitely would recommend it.
It's on my list now. It's on my list now.
Yeah.
Good. No, this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been great talking to you. Thank you so much for your time and everything, Michael. Really appreciate it.
All right.
Cool. We'll be in touch.
All right. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye.